Okay, so thanks for coming. And I've already been told there are 2 people that have been to Palestine. Are there any more? One? Oh, one? Oh, it's all right, that counts.
Okay.
Jolly good. So I'm not an expert, so feel free to jump in and correct me or add bits. It's about my trip to Palestine last year to pick olives. I belong to the North Norfolk group, and my particular responsibility, as you probably do in this group, is we all have different subjects, and mine is Palestine, the occupied territories. And so I have had a long-term interest, but no more. I'm preaching to the converted, I realise that, so no more than most of you. But I was really happy to go when I realised that the company we're going to be talking about, Zaytoon, organise tours, olive picking tours every year. So I thought it was just straightforward olive picking, but you will hear it's not quite as straightforward as that. It was organised by Zaytoon, and Zaytoon was started by a British woman. It's fair trade and organic. She was trying to help Palestinians find a way of exporting their products. To be in Palestine is very difficult to run a business. You can't import or export things easily. That's why people are so poor there. So she's done a fantastic thing in giving them a market. And Oxfam also have been involved in supporting the farmers. Just a bit of background. You all know where it is. There's Israel in green, and the West Bank and Gaza in red, Syria to the north, Jordan to the east, and there's Egypt to the west. So you all know that this map has changed over the years. It's been occupied, and bloody battles have taken place to occupy it. We've got the Romans, the Ottomans, Crusaders. It's also, of course, the homeland of the Jewish nation. Dates, important dates, 1917 Balfour Declaration gave a Jewish homeland for the first time. That was that was a British thing, but it didn't quite go as it was supposed to. It was written in that the people who were already there will be able to carry on their religion and their way of life without impediment, but we know that didn't happen. So the British Mandate, 1947, uprising in 48, 67, Six-Day War, and then various attempts at peacemaking, such as the Oslo Accord. So although we call it Palestine now, it's been annexed to Syria, Jordan, Gaza has been annexed to Egypt, but the Israelis would like to call it Judea and Samaria, going back to the Bible, but whatever you call it, it's the same indigenous people that have been there for centuries. So it's not an unbiased account, the one I'm going to give you, because I think we all know there's huge injustice in Palestine, and so I wanted to go to find out if that were the case, and I knew it was, but of course I still know it is. I'd read reports at Oxfam, Amnesty. We've all written to our MPs, gone on marches. The latest thing was Operation Cast Lead, the bombardment of Gaza. It's clear that injustices take place on a daily basis. So the main point of this whole talk is to show you what it's like to live with settlements above you. They're invariably above the villages on the hill. It's not an anti-Jewish talk in any way. There are many Jewish organisations that help the Palestinians, and members of our group were Jewish as well. So this is I've arrived safely in Jerusalem, and that's by no means an easy feat. You have to go through the Ben Gurion airport in Israel, where we were warned and briefed that we would be questioned. There's no way you can be honest and say, I'm going to see my Palestinian friends and pick olives. You'd be turned around immediately. And the week before I went, people decided they weren't going to lie, and that's what happened to them. So I turned into a pretty good liar, and I devised my story, and I booked myself into a convent in Jerusalem, which was lovely, very nice. We travelled singly for that reason. That, you wouldn't have done to all turn up on the same plane. And I knew that there was a member of our group was on the plane. It was all very cloak and dagger. And he had emailed me and said he was short, fat and bald. So I smiled at every short, fat, bald man, except for David, who was asleep on the plane, and I couldn't see him. So we eventually found ourselves, and it was great to have him to travel to Jerusalem with, because I arrived in the dead of night and had to walk through the souk in the dark. So that was not going to be our high point, so I was very pleased to have him there. So yes, at the airport, questions such as, why are you travelling alone, and where is your husband? And very steely-eyed, but most airports are a bit scary, they're just more so. So we all got through, in fact, and people that had been there for sort of 8 years in a row got through. So I don't think they're quite as good at espionage as we all think they are. So just a couple of slides of Jerusalem. The souk is wonderful, beautiful food, lovely smells, and you don't get hassled at all. So it couldn't be better. It's lovely. The only thing, of course, is there's tension in the air all the time, because there's this frantic mix of Christian tourists carrying crosses and singing, soldiers everywhere, young soldiers with looks like toy guns, and they're not toys, I'm told, and then the Orthodox Jewish people, and then behind it all is all the Palestinians running the stalls and doing the shopping. That's where they do all their shopping. It's in East Jerusalem, which is supposed to be a Palestinian area. So the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that's the centre for Christian devotion. It's got the last 3 stations of the cross, so it's where all Christian travellers will want to go. It's, in fact, the caretakers have been Muslim for the last few hundred years, because the varying Christian factions argued so much, they had to hand the keys over to some Muslims. So this is the sort of thing you'll see in East Jerusalem, which is Palestinian. There'll be Israeli squatters who will make it very clear that they've taken over a building. So it's very sad, because they're not supposed to be in that bit at all. It's designated by the UN. It's designated a Muslim quarter. The Palestinians who live in East Jerusalem can't extend their homes, they can't build any new homes, but the Jewish people who have taken it over illegally can build forever, and they don't need permits. So this, another bit I wasn't looking forward to was getting on the bus, leaving Jerusalem and going to the Calandia crossing, where there will be soldiers who got on the bus and had a look at us, and I couldn't believe how easy it was to get through. Having been warned so much about the airport, it seems once you're in, well, fingers crossed, you will get through. So this separation wall, it's horrible. It's an ugly scar. And it's not just the wall, but there are what they call settler roads, concrete roads which only settlers can go on, and they link settlement to settlement. So a landscape that hasn't changed since biblical times is just made ugly and bare and hostile. So it makes life very difficult, everyday life. You've got to go along to the checkpoint, there's miles between one and another. Whole villages are divided by the wall, so these children have obviously got to get to the other side to go to school. I mean, people who work in Jerusalem, if they're lucky enough to get a permit, have to get to the checkpoint hours before it opens so they can get through and go to work, and often they're turned back or held for hours on the bus. Now, I will explain, a lot of these photos are mine, most of them are, but some of these I've got from the archives because I could never have photographed that. I wouldn't have dared. This is a farmer, same situation. He'll have olive groves. His land would have been cut in two and taken away by the wall, but he might have olive groves on the other side, and he's got to get a permit to go onto his land. So he can't maintain his land. He can only go there once a year to try and pick olives, and it'll be quite likely when he gets there they've been slashed or burnt, the trees. It happens all the time. I can give you the statistics on that later. So from here, from the crossing, we went to Ramallah and then on to the IWPS house. It's the International Women's Peace Service that was started by a Norfolk woman, Angie Zelter. I think most of us have heard of Angie, haven't we? Well, it's one of her projects was to start a house. Women go there for 3 months in a year, and they're there to record. They stand at checkpoints. They're a central point for farmers and other people to bring information to, so they can get news out. They also witness house demolitions and send reports to the UN. It's thankless work. It's very hard work. It's amazing that they get volunteers to do that. So, this is our accommodation. We're divided into 2 villages. There are 17 of us, and sort of half and half, roughly, in each village. So the accommodation is really poor. It's an empty house, but it has got plumbing of sorts. But we wouldn't want it to be any other way because everyone around us is very poor, and for obvious reasons they can't work, they can't get out, so they really are poor, and we wouldn't want to live differently to them. So here's most of our group, not all of them. So this was a 2011 group. Some who've been going for years, others new people, all religions, Jewish, Hindi, Church of England, and no religion. One good Arab speaker, 2 a bit, and the rest of us struggle to say hello and goodbye. Thank you. So it was nice to be with some experts. This is our neighbour, and she's cooking her bread in an oil drum. And if we were lucky, we'd find a little present when we got home from the fields, some bread. And she'd come and put her best dress on in the evening and sit with us and talk a lot. And we didn't know what she was saying, but she was very friendly. And she laughed all the time, which was great. So here we are. This is Barin, one of the 2 villages with a mosque. So we tend to have the villages down in the valleys, and that's a settlement above. So those lights, when you're in a village, at night you have orange lights all around you. They all have paths coming down from them that the soldiers come down on regularly, but a villager wouldn't dare to go up there. The olive trees used to go right up to the settlements. Now it's much more difficult to get up there. They've either been burnt or it's too dangerous to go near there. These two settlements that we're near have been classified by the UN as ultra-religious and ideological settlers, most from Russia, and they believe they have a God-given right to get rid of Palestinians. They attack Palestinians and they're not charged or brought to book. Water is an issue because the settlements have a Western lifestyle with swimming pools and all the water they need. Water is controlled by the government, and the settlements get roughly 5 times as much as the villages per person. So, another injustice. There was a well. Both villages had a well and didn't need the Israelis to supply them with water, but the settlers poisoned the wells. And when Oxfam tried to go and reinstate one, they were attacked. So this is my first day of olive picking, and it was kind of a soft day. It was an easy day. There was a mother and 2 daughters. The men in the family were away working, as they often have to do. So there was no access to this by vehicle. We walked and had wheelbarrows. The reason we're picking with this family is it's very close to a road, and you see the white sacks. I don't know why they don't use brown sacks, but the white sacks are very easy to spot by the settlers, who will just stop on the road and steal them if they see them. We were told to expect lunch. We're quite happy to take bread and stuff, but Arabic hospitality is legendary, and there's no way you could refuse lunch. And so about midday, the mother disappeared with the wheelbarrow and came back with the most amazing spread that must have taken them all night to cook, and together with bottles of frozen Coke, Coca-Cola, and frozen water, and then the crowning glory at the end of our huge meal that we had to work after was some Cadbury's chocolate. I don't know how they kept it from melting, but that was all for our sake, of course. So they were very sweet. Other groups had seen settlers that day, so we felt that we were frauds, really. We had a lovely day. Next day, we had a little bit more action, though I personally didn't see settler action, as it's called, hardly at all, and all the time I was there. This is Arbed's land. Arbed is a farmer. A lot of people pick olives for themselves and their families, but Arbed is an olive farmer, and his family always have been, so he's got a tractor. You can tell he's serious. That is a settler road above him. So because we were with him, that's the reason we're there, is to hopefully deter attacks. We were spotted by the army, and they pretty soon stopped and got out and had a look at us. And Maggie, our long-standing member, went up and had a chat and said what a lovely day it was, and she came back and said they were very nice young men, very polite, and looked a bit embarrassed. So we thought that was fine. We got away with it. And the next day, our bed was approached and said if they saw Westerners on his land again, they would take his permit away. They need permits for their own land. Again, he's got a lot of land, a lot of olive trees, and he got permits for 3 days. It would take him a month to pick all his olives. So it's very, very difficult. So, he can hardly maintain his land. He can't plough it and manure it. So it's very difficult. This is a tree that's been burnt. Well, this whole field has been burnt. It was burnt about 6 months before the harvest, so Abed was keen to show us. And there are the statistics. In 2011, 10,000 trees damaged or destroyed by settlers. And these figures are all, if you ever want to go onto the UN, onto Palestine, there's lots of statistics. Everyone's sort of there gathering statistics, it's just no one can do anything about it. But I don't want to give you all bad news, because the harvest has always been everyone's favourite time. They love going out and picking olives, and very rarely now will they take children because it's considered dangerous, but this family were having a great time, so it's not all bad news. But traditionally the schools would have been closed and all the families would have gone and picked. So this is our olives coming back from the fields to the olive press, where we were treated to harvest songs by the pickers, and then we were asked our harvest songs, and I can't think of, I didn't want to sing we plough the fields and scatter. Not very jolly. So I'm going back this year, and I meant to learn one, but if anyone knows one, let me know. So straight into the hopper and up the conveyor belt. They're sort of varying quality, and some farmers keep leaves in and some take them out, but the machine sorts all that out, and up they go, ready to be turned into olive oil. And none of these statistics are very nice. It's when the press went in, the first year they were getting 4,000 litres, and in 2010 that had gone down to 1,000 litres because of all the problems and the devastation of the trees. So it's very dispiriting for everybody. So there you are, a huge sack of olives will yield 10 to 11 litres of oil. I can't think how many people it would take to fill a sack for a day. Probably 2 people for a day. And everyone always picks the last olive. You're not allowed to move on till that's picked. It was amazing that someone had got this picture, because you hardly ever see sheep. Traditionally they would have been left out and grazed on the underneath the olive trees, but it's too dangerous to do that. The settlers took them or killed them. So this shepherd would have taken his sheep around and then taken them back to the village at night. There are no cattle out. The cattle are all kept in buildings, and this was you can only see 2 goats, but that's full of goats, that shed. I'll try to get a bit of fresh air. This is Amar's house. This was another village, Asira, and I'm sorry I didn't get more pictures of the house. This is Auntie, who's absolutely ferocious. She lives in a little room there, and the donkey lives in the room next door. And then on the first floor is the extended family of mother, father, 3 grown-up boys, 1 grown-up daughter and grandfather, and the day after I left, 1 grandchild. So, but the father had worked in Saudi Arabia, so they were considered well off, this family. It was a real spanning the centuries. You had the donkey downstairs and the Wi-Fi and computers upstairs, so it was a real mixture. This is the family again. This is grandfather in the foreground, and Ma with the hat on, and father with the beard and his back to us. this was a lovely day. We were a long way from anywhere, and there was a Jewish festival going on. I can't remember the name of it, but where everyone goes out and lives in a tent overnight. I think it's called Shukrot or something, to remind the Jews that when they arrived in Palestine, that's how they had to live. So it was considered safe for children to pick just for the morning there. And Amar bought them. We were already picking, and Amar came along with them. And they were little monkeys. They were just so overexcited. And they're haphazard, you know, they kind of bang a tree to bits to get the olives, but very happy. And then they suddenly went terribly quiet, and we discovered it was because Amar's father was their teacher. And teachers are very strict, especially in the boys' school. They carry hoses, not water hoses, but, you know, for corporal punishment. And the boys just, you know, they were very well behaved from then on. So this is Josh. He was our youngest member. He's absolutely delightful. He'd travelled all through Israel and other Arab areas, and he was helping us for 2 weeks, and he was going to study Arabic this year. And the farmers loved him because the farmers are used to seeing mostly women of a certain age come and pick with them, but they were able to have a good joke at Josh's expense, I must say, but they really liked having him around. So there's Mar's father cooking us tomatoes and onions with eggs. That was the menu that day, which was absolutely delicious. Amar's mother is winnowing her olives. She's an absolute fastidious picker, and she was having no leaves or stalks going in with her olives. So you know, it made it a longer job, but she was a very strict picker. So it was an absolute joy to be with that family, and each morning we were sort of allocated a farmer, and we were always hoping that it would be our day to go to this family. So we went back filthy to their house at the end of this day's picking, only to discover that they had put a spread out for us that they must have cooked the night before. So not only did we have lunch, but we had this amazing spread. We had coffee, we had tea, and they just love giving hospitality. And the family, and you'll find out why this is so amazing in a moment, but the family are just full of fun and jokes. Amar's brother, who was probably about 22, I would have thought, that day he learned the whole of the to be or not to be speech, just from the picket. He didn't learn much from me. I knew the first line, but and he was a policeman, but he was absolutely delightful. So when we were back in the house, there were two pictures on the wall, and Amar's parents explained who they were. 8 years ago, the 18-year-old brother, Amar's older brother at that time, was shot dead. They said, we don't really know why, but we don't know if he was shot by settlers or the army. His body was never returned, and Amar has an online campaign for the return of his body and others. 2 years ago, the youngest brother, a 13-year-old, was shot dead by settlers. They said he was carrying a Molotov cocktail on the Settler Road. Nobody was allowed to say he wasn't. But not only did Amar's parents have to deal with this, but they took Amar away, and he was in solitary confinement for 3 months, and no charges were brought against him, no charges were brought against the person that did the killing. baby is the one that was born on the day I was on the way home. I wanted them to call her Olive, but they weren't keen. So these little excited girls are the girls' school. When I went, I was only going for 2 weeks and other people had gone for 3 weeks. And I said, I'm going to pick every day, thank you, I don't want a day off. And this was about the 4th day. I can't go on. So they allowed a group of us to have a day off. So we visited the boys' school first, which, as I say, is very strict. But we went to see 2 new classrooms, which the group I go with, not Zaytoun, but they've formed the Friends of Madamar and Barin, and we do fundraising for the schools. So 2 new rooms had been built, so it was lovely to go and see those. In Palestine, education is the highest priority. To give you an idea of costs, parents will pay around £9 per child per year, and that's the only revenue that the school will get. The teachers are paid by the Palestinian Authority. Israel controls the curriculum, so goodness knows what that says historically. 9th and 10th grade students may study other accounts of history. I don't know what that age is, 9th and 10th grade. So about 1% of students study abroad. They'll get their education will be paid for probably from outside, I would have thought. So everyone's very keen to be one of those students, but they may have to stay away for 4 years, because if they go abroad, it might be difficult for them to get back and go out again. So families are so keen for them to go abroad and have a good education that they will accept that. 90% of children go to university. They're educated till they're 22 years old, and so they're very highly educated. They all speak English very well. There are no politics in school, and most of the English teachers have never heard English spoken by a native, but with modern equipment you would never know that they hadn't heard that. So this is the girls' school, and it was built before the Settler Road, which is behind it and up on a high level. So the headmistress told us that the girls get very frightened because army jeeps will stop, settlers' cars will stop, and it all feels very threatening. And the headmistress had a bullet on her desk, which had been found that week in the playground. And they can't study in Jerusalem. There are very severe restrictions for anyone going to Jerusalem. The Israelis say for security reasons. So and that's the place they'd all love to go because it's the centre of Palestine, but they're not allowed to go. There's no science facility here. They'd have to go a bit further away. So when we got back, I haven't finished yet, but in case you're wondering. When we got back, we shared our observations with each other, and I've chosen a bit from 2 reports which other people are going to read. So Peter, who was with us, wrote a report of an incident that I also witnessed. So I was very glad he'd written it so well. So Dante is going to read Peter's report of M's story. You can let's see if we can hear you.
M came to the house in Burin one evening and asked if there were 3 volunteers who would be willing to pick near the Yitzhak settlement. His friend the farmer had been given a permit by the IDF. Maggie, Josh and Rosemary agreed to go. They had a long walk up the terraces where the settlers and army were waiting for them. This is a closed military zone, they said, and ordered the foreigners to leave. This is the usual excuse to get rid of outside observers. Maggie asked for the soldier's name and number and was told he was a volunteer and didn't have a number. M came by in the evening and told us what happened. A settler got close to the farmer and photographed him with a phone as he picked. The farmer repeatedly asked him not to and eventually took hold of the phone. The soldiers intervened, arrested the farmer and took him away. Word got round to the village that the other men started to arrive. The first two arrivals were taken aside by the army, blindfolded and their hands tied. They were left to sit in the hot sun for 3 hours. M took them water. They were later released. We heard from a father's mother the following day. She had to chase round her neighbours to borrow 1,700 new Israeli shekels, which is about £320, to get him out, and is now desperately worried about how she will repay it. When the farmer was detained, he was handcuffed and his legs were tied to a table. A policewoman interrogated him. She asked him where he was from and he replied, "Burin." She slapped him. She asked the same question, received the same reply, and slapped him again. The point here is that the settlers and some other Israelis believe that the West Bank is part of Israel and that the Palestinians should not have been there, so they don't accept the villages like Burin and have been there, that have been in existence for thousands of years. We eventually heard that the farmer would be tried by a military court in 2 weeks' time. He could face anything up to a year in prison.
He was a lovely, quiet young man. Mahmoud was his name. So, back to my day off. So, off we went to Nablus and had lunch in an air-conditioned hotel and had a look around the souk there. And I was absolutely amazed. Not many Westerners visit Nablus, and wherever you go, you're welcome. Welcome to my country. Please visit again. This man is running a soap. He's on a market stall selling soap. Probably has been sold here for 500 years. It's in a very old area, and he took us off to the soap factory, which is that again ancient, but it wasn't open. It wasn't open. So it has a souk, a hammam. It's just very, very authentic. A lot of the buildings still remain, but it has been bombed over the years by the Israelis. Shops like this everywhere. I mean, if it were in Europe, it would be a tourist destination. We wouldn't be able to wait to get there. But it's on ancient trading routes, and it's just outside Nablus is the site of the Good Samaritan. So it's full of history. You know, they don't. I took this to illustrate that recycling and litter clearing is not a priority in these places. This is Nablus Square, and UN 194, I understand, was the resolution after 1948 when the Palestinians were thrown off their land and scattered and are still in refugee camps ever since 1948. This is the resolution that said they would be allowed back one day. So they live in hope. So back to picking. So this is another shot of Burin with Itzhak up on the hill. And now another story reported by Dave. And this is P's story that Mand is going to read.
I picked the olives one day with P and his family up near the Israeli settlement of Raqqa. His young daughter was with him and helped out with everything, including making us wonderful tea and coffee. P worked well considering his severe disability, a result of bullet wounds through his right wrist, stomach and left leg. His right arm was in a sling and he constantly tried to squeeze on a rubber ball to get some movement and feeling back to his hand. He was cheerful and lively in his work. Later his wife joined us and picked a tree by thrashing it, with furious energy and force. The trees we picked were at the top line of the olive groves on the hill towards Bracker, but there were 2 more trees some distance further up. These 2 had not been picked for several years, such a tempting target. At the end of the day, 2 of us walked stealthily up to these 2 and picked as much as we could without the requisite sheets and bags. Nobody approached us, and there were no warning shouts. Good feeling. After work, we were invited to a meal with P's young family, 2 boys and 3 girls. A joyful and wonderful chaotic experience, with each of the children outperforming all the others. In first place came the smallest daughter, who had collected everyone's headgear and walked around as if in a fashion parade, with increasing numbers of caps on her head. Their newly built house was on the same hill up towards Bracker, below where we had picked, but higher than the rest of the Palestinian village of Burin. Only the abandoned summer house stood above it. P explained as we stood on his roof how he had been injured earlier that year at this very place. Settlers had approached silently through the olive groves, which at one point were level with a flat roof and only a few metres away. To do this, they had to come down from the settlement, through some open ground below, and then further down through several hundred metres of olive grove. They opened fire without warning in the early dark. Their guns were accurate at that distance and shot the man to pieces. P collapsed in a heap, bleeding from many wounds. A man at his own house, in his own village, gunned down with impunity. There were no arrests or charges.
So they're the statistics for injuries and deaths. So P would have been one of those statistics. And when you think of injured, you know, it can be anything, but it can be that serious. He was lucky to live. Another David on the trip from a farming background. I'd just like to read you a little excerpt from his report. Typically, an olive tree is capable of living and producing for 1,300 years. Trees dying naturally this year may well have been planted when the Vikings were plundering Britain. The trees fired this year were around 40 years old. Being a farmer is being a steward of the land. When I quoted the old farming adage that you should live as if you'll die tomorrow, but farm as if you'll live forever, to Ahmad, he grinned at me and told me, those are the words of our prophet. So the connection was made on the level of love of the land. However, there is no stewardship in the action of people from the settlements who raise young olive trees to blackened stumps. I'm just going to finish with an excerpt from Mahmoud Darwish, who is a Palestinian poet. We should not justify suicide bombers. We are against the suicide bombers. But we must understand what drives these young people to such actions. They want to liberate themselves from such a dark life. It's not ideological, it's despair. Palestinian people are in love with life. If we give them hope, a political solution, they'll stop killing themselves. And that's just showing the drop in population. It's kind of shocking, really. You know, most populations grow. The populations in these villages shrink. There are a lot of empty houses.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much indeed.
Depressing, isn't it? Sorry.
Any questions anyone would like to ask? Can I just ask one to start? I mean, there's so much one would like to ask. The one I pick out, I mean, damaging trees, the ones that are too near the settlements. I mean, who does that, and why would they do it? I mean, can I just leave it at that? And do you know the answer?
Yes, I mean what you saw there were trees on Palestinian land, but getting close to a settlement, and the settlers don't want Palestinians going anywhere near their settlements, despite the fact it's their own land. And so it would have started, a few around the perimeter, and they just carried on. There'll be masses of trees burnt, not around the settlement. They do it for sport,
For sport?
Well, to get rid of the Palestinians.
So I mean,
don't want them there.
did you get the feeling they were simply trying to make a sort of what do you call it, a cordon sanitaire?
At first,
and then it became
even though they're the armed ones. That's what they've done. The Zaytoun newsletter this month that only came out a couple of days ago has reported that where I was last year, there's been a lot more burning. So it goes on. And Dear Istria, where the IWPS house is, the farmers, our group used to pick there. They had to stop because the olive trees have almost all disappeared by burning. And then the ones that had been replanted to replace them, the farmers have all been issued with warrants and have been told to dig them up. So they've got to dig up their own trees. But there's been a campaign, and this started in June, the deadline passed. We wrote to our MPs, as we do, and it looked like we might have got away with it, but today was the second deadline, and I don't know yet whether they will take action now, and how that went. I'll know in a day or two.
So it's not an organised campaign, it's more or less just people are allowed, the settlers are allowed to do what they like.
Yes, just like that. They'll come down with
yeah.
masks and the farmers can be there pleading with them to stop doing it, and they still do.
Thank you.
What is the role of the soldiers in all of this? Are they based in the settlement?
There are army camps everywhere, but they're supposed to be there to protect the villagers from the settlers, but it's very much the other way round. They'll set up roadblocks, they'll look at people's papers, and they'll take people away, and for no reason. It's ruling by intimidation. But somehow, I don't know what the villagers would say, but I felt the soldiers were less frightening than the settlers. The settlers are now used to shooting people and getting away with it. There is an organisation of ex-soldiers called Breaking the Silence, where they've given reports of how they felt about having to be in that position, and a lot of them don't like it. But they are now allowing settlers to join the army. They're insisting that settlers join the army, and they don't. And also Orthodox Jewish people who used to be able to be exempt because they were studying, they're going to join the army. I think the non-religious Israelis are getting fed up with having to do all the soldiering, the draft. But that will be a really dangerous situation when that happens. Going back to M's story, the soldiers there were pretty bad, and then the next day they went back. They weren't so bad, and they said, "We're here to protect you," and they came back amazed that he'd said that, even though that's why they're supposed to be there. So they're not all bad.
Would you be able to say anything about how much of this discrimination happens with the approval of the government, and how much it's in accordance with the law, and how much it's done by illegally?
Well, the government, there's total discrimination. I mean, they're separated. The Palestinians can't go on the same roads as a lot of it is like apartheid. They can't go on the same roads as the settlers. Hopefully there'll be a solution like there was with apartheid, but I think Western governments are too, well, this isn't answering your question, but Western governments are too close to Israel to implement sanctions, though we must. So I think the Palestinians would say that there's total segregation.
Where do they go to university? It seems amazing that so many of them are able to.
Within Jordan, there are universities. There's a university outside Jerusalem, very near Jerusalem, but outside Jerusalem. And I don't know if there are in Syria as well, but of course you all know what's happening in Syria, so there's no normal life there. And the biggest refugee camp that's been there since 1948 is in Syria, and that's being bombed as well. So I don't know, I will try and find that out, because you pick up a lot when you're there, but you don't know, you can't find out everything.
Was the farm anywhere near one of these walls?
No, the wall is around the perimeter of the West Bank. So as you go into the country, you're going away. It doesn't crisscross it. The roads crisscross it, but the wall is around the perimeter. And when I saw it most was when I went to Hebron, which is in the south. So there was quite a lot of driving, and you see it a lot then.
So did you go through one of the checkpoints?
Oh yeah. Yes.
And were there queues of people going there, or was it?
No, not when I went through at all. I don't know if it was just just at the right time. But the day that Hebron is the worst place, I think. It's horribly divided, and you have to go through metal gates and to be searched. But on the day we were in Hebron was the day, I don't know if you remember, 1,000 prisoners were released in exchange for one Israeli soldier. And it was wonderful. People were running out in tears, saying, "My son's coming home." And, a lot of them had been rearrested, but it was wonderful.
A lot of them were deported to Gaza.
Were they? Oh yes, they weren't allowed to go back where they came from, were they? Yeah.
Why did you think the Israelis control the curriculum in the schools?
Oh, well, they change maps. They're masters of misinformation.
I see.
And last year there was an advertising campaign in The Guardian, The Observer of all places, a 3-page advertising campaign to go and have a holiday in Samaria and Judea, which is the Palestinian West Bank. And we wrote to the Advertising Standards Authority because Palestine wasn't on the map, and it was upheld, but of course it already happened. And they do it all the time. It's part of their campaign. They hope the Palestinians will all go away, and they'll do everything they can to do that.
Yeah.
I think I've got 2 questions. One is, did you come into contact with any Israelis who were very concerned about what was going on?
I didn't meet any, but there are plenty. There are rabbis for human rights, and whenever something like this case in Deir Istria, where they need a presence, there are groups from Israel, Jewish groups from Israel, who will come in.
And my fear about this, not my personal fear, but one of the things I've wondered about with this is, I think in Europe at the moment there's this terrible Islamophobia, which I think is appalling. But I think there's a potential here for anti-Semitism again. Do you get that feeling in Israel?
I've only ever come across it here when I've been doing petitions here,
Yes.
But No, we had Jewish people with us,
Yeah.
and they were absolutely charming and
Yes.
fascinated
Yes.
by them. And they liked to compare words that were similar, and
Yes.
things from the Bible that were similar, you know. So, but of course, you know, we're with friends, and they want to be kind to us. So, I don't know generally. I mean, obviously, Hamas have said they want to eradicate the Jews, but hopefully that's all going to change.
Did you get an overall sense that things were improving or just going down here?
The settler violence is not improving, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And you see there are more and more settlements. So apparently you'll see a stick in the ground, then there's a caravan. It'll be illegal settlements. There are huge settlements. Ariel is like a city, you know, but that is not an illegal settlement. And that's more mixed, I think. But it's the ideological ones. That's their ideology, is to just get rid of the Arabs and take over. So I wish I could say it was improving.
Economically or in other ways and less?
There's just no economy because you can't. And this is why Zaytoun is so good, because you know they're giving them, and they're going into dates now and almonds. They're giving them a market. But I'd like to explain why it's so expensive. They're not allowed to bottle it themselves. You know, they have to go through all sorts of hoops. So all industries would have to do this. This is why, you know, it's so difficult. They can't have a bottling plant unless, in case they make Molotov cocktails of the bottles. So they then have to go out of the country and pay for bottling. And so that's why, you know, by the time it reaches us, it's very expensive.
So it was kind of really surprising that local young people were being educated up until 22. So what are they doing afterwards?
The university ends at 22, I think.
It does, yes. A lot of teachers, you know, to teach the next. You know, there'll be doctors, teachers, nurses, and they'll live within Palestine, or they'll go away, and more they go away, often to Jordan, so they can come back and support their families who they've left behind. But yes, when there's not a proper economy, you know, there are not factories. The factories are all Israeli. You know, I think I was reading last night that you know, in the 1800s and 1900s, cotton was the industry. The Palestinians grew cotton and sold it, but they wouldn't be able to do that now. And oranges, of course.
Did you feel that your presence as Europeans did help?
I wasn't sure. They very much emphasise that it was, you know, the people that we stay with. It's not universal. There are people, I didn't know this, thank goodness I didn't know, that don't want us there. Because, you know, one village might be Fatah, the other village might be Hamas, and there's so many divisions. You know, because they're kettled, it's explosive, and there are so many divisions. When we walked at night from one village to another, it was a bit unnerving. We were stoned by children one night when they probably thought we were settlers, but or they didn't know. They had announced it in the school, and there was actually an Al Jazeera report on the television, you know, about Western olive pickers, but you know, I don't know if it does any good. My worry about Palestine is observers go, they come back, and nothing changes. It's like a museum. You know, I would hate that to be the case. That's why whenever we go, we agree to give talks and try and, you know, just spread the word. Because there's not much point in going and looking and coming back and not doing anything.
Is that a question? Oh,
No, I mean,
you just sit like that.
presumably the families knowing that there are people out there in other parts of the world who understand their situation. And
Yes.
solidarity.
Everywhere you go, tell them our story, tell them what it's like. So we do.
Yes, and very well too.
Since my trip to Jerusalem, I went to Jerusalem about 2 years ago, I've read a book called The Two Worlds by Richard Crockett. Have you come across that? He's a Norwich man, works at UEA, and his wife lives in Tel Aviv. So he's been to stay there. But it's only it's an e-book. You have to just get it online. It's not actually a paper book.
I don't think that's on. I have left a book list and a list of organisations, or a letter to sign.
It's called Two Worlds.
Richard Crockett?
Crockett, yeah. And this evening we were going to be watching a film. I'm in a film group, and we come here instead. But we were going to watch a film called The Lemon Tree, which is all about Palestinian farmers. And,
It's very good.
It's a very good film.
and so actually Lucy and I are actually going to go back home and watch this. If anybody wants to come and watch it, that's
May I
what we're
point
going
out
to do.
that I brought back thinking it was the film of the book The Lemon Tree by Sandy Tolan, which is the true story of a friendship between Palestinian and Israeli. It's a political history, really. But that isn't it. I mean,
It's a different
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But it's about Palestinians farming with the wall dividing their farm.
Yes.
So it was just
Well, you're going to have a deep Palestinian evening.
Obviously, yeah. Are there any more questions? Oh, yes, David, sorry.
Just an observation, really. Obviously, you met quite a number of families and worked with them. And although there are enormous privations and deaths in the family, the young man being killed and so on, did you get a sense that because the problem they're in is so enormous, I mean, we can't solve it individually, did you get the impression from these people, very ordinary people, that they were resigned to the situation in some way, because they have to get through their daily lives? They sort of shut their minds off in a way to all the terrible things that happen to them.
I might have thought that, and then Amar on my last night took the road up towards the settlement and showed us a piece of land that was his land, but he couldn't build on it because he'd get shot, living towards the settlement. And they're not resigned. They're so angry, it was a beautiful spot, and you could see the lights of Tel Aviv in the distance. And no, they're not resigned. That's why you can see them explode on from time to time. They're hemmed in. The Israelis know their every move. Amar is an IT teacher, and he's on his computer, but he knows that he can't say anything on his computer because it could be, it could be tapped at any time. So, no, they're hugely resentful, but they still manage to be very polite and nice to us. And his grandfather and father sort of can remember the British, so that was sort of, you'd think they'd be resentful to us, but they weren't. Yeah.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much, Jenny. That was extremely interesting. We're most grateful to you for coming. Thank you again.